Let me ask you something that might sound a little shocking at first. What would you do if one day your child gave you a big hug and then leaned in and whispered right in your ear,
"I'm going to kick Grandma"?
I know, right? Pretty unsettling. Well, one of the parents I work with had that exact moment with her son Jack. And here's what's fascinating. That moment that seemed so alarming, it was actually a sign of incredible progress. Let me tell you why. Here's the backstory. Jack used to hit and kick whenever he felt overwhelmed, and I mean almost every single day. His parents tried what most of us would do, right? They tried to discipline it out of him, timeouts, consequences, stern talks, the whole traditional parenting playbook. But guess what? It didn't work. You knew that. The conflicts just kept escalating and everyone was completely drained. Eventually, they hit that point where they knew something had to change. So they shifted their whole approach. Instead of focusing on punishing the behavior, they started asking, what's actually going on here? What's behind all of this? And when they took a look, they actually noticed something interesting. Jack melted down way more often when he went to Grandma's house after school, especially when he was expected to jump right into chores, just like his cousins did. But Jack wasn't wired that way. He needed some recovery time first, a chance to decompress after holding it together all day at school. So they had a conversation with Grandma, and they adjusted the routine. They made sure that Jack got a little break before anybody else asked anything of him. But then came that moment that felt like a huge setback. One day, during a quiet moment with Dad, Jack gave him a hug and whispered, "I'm going to kick Grandma." Another time he whispered a word like, "stupid." One of those words he knew he definitely shouldn't be saying. And I'll be honest, his parents kind of froze when that happened. What would you do, right? They wondered, is he testing the boundaries? Is he waiting to see if there's going to be a consequence? They felt like it was a big step backward. Well, maybe, but I asked them to think about something else entirely. What if Jack wasn't testing anything at all? What if he was actually sharing something vulnerable? What if those quiet whispers were kind of a confession, his way of saying, I'm still having these thoughts and I don't know what to do with them? And here's the most important part, what I really want you to hear. Jack didn't act on the thought. He didn't kick anyone. He didn't yell or scream. He had the thought, but he chose not to act on it. That's regulation. That's growth. Look, you and I both know that everyone has thoughts they don't act on, right? That's what self-regulation is. Just the other day, I was stuck in construction traffic for what felt like forever. And I'll be totally honest with you, there was definitely a moment where I considered just driving around the flag guy. I didn't, of course, but the thought, it was definitely there. We've all heard people say, oh, they're going to tell someone off, and then they don't. Having the thought and not acting on it, it's something we do every single day. And when our kids do it, especially kids like Jack who are still learning to regulate, it's not just normal, it's a milestone worth celebrating. But here's where it gets tricky for a lot of us as parents. When you hear your child say something that sounds aggressive or even a little dark, it's so easy to jump in with those automatic responses. We don't talk like that. That's not okay. Don't say that. Especially if we're within earshot from somebody who's expecting us to say things like that. I get it. Those responses feel right in the moment. But here's the thing. Kids like Jack don't just hear, don't say that. What they hear is, don't think that. And that's where the problem starts. Because when a child starts to feel ashamed of their thoughts, they won't stop having the thoughts. They'll just stop telling you about them. And that moment where they feel the shame and they stop telling you, that's when connection starts to break down between you. So what can you do instead? Here's what I encourage Jack's parents to try, and what you might want to experiment with too. First, do your best to stay calm, or if you find yourself activated, take a moment, deep breath, re-regulate. Remember, this is actually a good sign. Then try saying something like, thank you for telling me how you're feeling. Or, it's okay to have thoughts like that. What matters is what we do with them, and you didn't act on it. That shows real control. I'm really proud of you for that. You might follow up with some gentle curiosity. Was something bothering you? Do you want to talk more about it? Now let me be clear about something. You're not rewarding the thought itself. You're creating safety around it, so your child doesn't feel like their internal world has to stay hidden from you. And let's add some nuance here, because this is really important. No, I'm not saying that how they think will never change. In fact, you're an incredibly powerful influence on how your child grows and reflects and makes sense of their thoughts over time. But that shaping, it doesn't happen best through shame or punishment. Of course, many of us were raised that way, but it actually happens better through trust. And trust starts when you stop trying to control what they think and start supporting what they do with what they think. We say the same thing to them about their feelings, right? They can have all the feelings. They can have the whole array of feelings. It's what they do with the feelings that they have to be careful about, right? They can feel angry. They can feel frustrated, but they can't rip up their homework or hit grandma or hit a friend, right? Just because they're angry. They can have the feelings, but they have to learn the self-regulation skills to manage the behavior associated with the feelings or the thoughts. So the next time your child whispers something that unsettles you, like Jack did, try to remember the thought itself isn't the threat. The fact that they're telling you about it, that is actually something to celebrate. These moments are signs that your child is beginning to reflect, to regulate, and to develop that internal dialogue that's so crucial for emotional health. And when you show them that you're safe to tell the truth to without fear or shame, you're giving them the most important skills they'll ever learn. If this hit home for you, if you've had moments where your child said something where you weren't quite sure how to respond, I want you to know something. You're not alone in this, not at all. If there's someone in your life who might benefit from this perspective, please pass the video along. Help me reach more parents who might be struggling with these exact moments. And hey, drop a comment below if you've been there. I genuinely love to hear your experiences. If you want more support like this, hit that subscribe button. I share stories and strategies every week to help you parent your autistic child with more clarity, deeper connection, and genuine confidence. Let's build a community where we can all support and uplift each other. Remember, you're doing more right than you know. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.